I make a lot of my characters at level 80, and usually I talk about why I decide to make them level 80 in the videos where I go over the different types of builds. So the different types of builds are all in a playlist on this channel. If you go to the front page of the channel, there should be a little thing that says playlists, and there will be Elden Ring build showcases, stuff like all my builds, or if I'm just playing around with a specific weapon or skill or spell or whatever. Those videos will go in that playlist. Then there's another playlist that's like Learn to Invade Elden Ring, and in that playlist I have a video that talks about all the different levels that I really like to invade, and you know, like 40, 80, 120 to 150, anywhere in that area, and then like I have a level 200, and that's a lot of fun as well. But a lot of my builds always end up being level 80, and I get asked if 80 is like my favorite place to invade. It's not necessarily, but I do really like 80. The reason that I like it so much is because at level 80 you can pretty much get like one stat at a sort of you know, soft cap, and you can have your vigor close to around 50. So if you get 50 vigor, you can also have like 50 strength, or 50 dex, or 50 int, or 50 faith, or 50 arcane, whatever. And it's just a very nice place for there to be invasions at, for other reasons as well. Around level 80, you would expect that your opponents probably have all 4 of their talisman slots unlocked. They should have all 4 of their talismans by that point, surely. I'm not saying everybody does, but you would suspect that most people do around level 80. And so you get into this point where maybe they don't have completely upgraded flasks, right? But you can have that. And so that's one little thing that you can have. Since you're constantly invading into groups of people, you know, it's nice to have those sorts of legs up on your opponents, and that's, you know, one that you can have. Now at level 80, the disparity should actually pretty much, it should still be in the host's side. The host should still have more flasks than you're going to have, because yours are cut in half because you're invading. But you know, maybe they don't have them fully upgraded yet. Maybe they don't have every flask yet. And now that's not to say you're going to run into a ton of people who have also made low-level builds, and as a result, they have like full flasks and everything like that. So you're going to run into people that do have all that. But you know, at level 80, it's not as hard to overcome. So the thing that I'll never say I have like a favorite range, because there's really no. This is another thing that happens. Another conversation. People talk about like moving meta level around. Like, what should meta level be? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There will always be something at some level range that is better than everything else. And the reason for that is because this is a 100-hour-long RPG game. It's not a competitive fighter. There is so much content in this game, and for them to go through all of that content and then also make it a balanced fighting game on top of that would be, it would just literally be insane. You know, like, it's just not going to happen. So you can have a level 40 bull goat light roll dual pike, you know, like, you can run into that at level 40, just like you can run into it at level, you know, 120, just like you can run into it at level 200. There's always going to be a way to get to that. Granted, maybe at like level 40, they have to blow like a wondrous physic, and all their talisman slots and everything else, you know, but they'll do it. They'll find a way. They'll find a way to do it. And that's just the nature of people playing an RPG, right? If this was a fighting game, Sure, they could balance and keep that from happening, but they're not going to, because this isn't. It's not a fighting game at all. It is, in fact, a 100-hour-long action RPG, if you can believe it. I know you come to the PvP channel, and I'm acting like this isn't a PvP game. So no, it doesn't matter. You can't move the meta around. It's not going to fix anything if you move it around. If you go to level 200, okay, whatever you think the strongest build is at level 120, okay, give that 80 more levels. If you increase meta level, that's what you're going to do. Now let's say you want to decrease meta level. Okay, everyone's still going to run the same stuff they run now. They're just going to trim the fat on it a little bit. And then that's going to be what's meta. It's always going to be the same thing. It's always going to be Havelmom with a backstab stick. It's never going to be anything else. And that's not anything to do with PvP balance. It's everything to do with this being an RPG that has PvP in it. Okay, so there's my little rant, and it's over. So, I'm never going to say 80's the best. 80's where all the fun stuff is. Because that's not necessarily true. But on average, 80 is really fun. Your build is finished. You've trimmed the fat off of it. But with 4 talisman slots and a wondrous physic, you can either go in real hard on something and be very efficient at one thing, or you can kind of start to branch out a little bit and do multiple things. So like at level 60, I have a build at level 60. At that level, I'm not branching out. I'm branching out as little as possible. I am going to just be a pure strength build, or a pure arcane build. I'm going to have, 40 vigor and like 30 of whatever. And I'm getting that with talismans, I'm getting that with wondrous physics, and stuff like that. Everything I have is going into making that build finished at level 60. At level 80, you kind of get a little bit of wiggle room to play with, but not so much as you would get if you added 40 levels to it and went up to 120. Level 80 is also fun because you get people who are still actively playing the game. They're actively still playing through the level. And that's what invasions are supposed to be. This was the thing I talked about a lot in Dark Souls 3 videos. Back then, there were a lot of people who were like mad at invasions, and that is the thing that happens far less frequently with Elden Ring. The player base, despite being, 16 million people larger, I'm not saying that you don't still see people mad at invasions. But if you take the 3 or 4 million people who bought Dark Souls 3 at release, and you go back and you look at how mad they all were at invasions, and you compare that to the 12 million, 16 million, whatever it was, Elden Ring people who bought it on release, there was way, way, way less griping from players about invasions. Okay, so the thing about invasions is, like, they're against your will. That is literally the definition of the word, right? And so the idea that, like, invasions are supposed to be like these, like, I invade your world, I stopped by to be honorable, or whatever. Like, if you want to do that, that's fine. But, and that goes back to, like, Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls days. But that's not what people like me are after. Like, I don't want you to stop everything you're doing and bow to me, and don't expect me to do that either. I'm not gonna just sit here and, like, trust that you and your 2 friends are gonna give me an honorable fight. Even if you're a solo host, I'm not gonna trust that you're gonna give me a quote-unquote honorable fight. I know that you could summon a blue at a moment's notice and I would never know. I know that if you decided to heal and your build is, like, finished, I know that you've got double the amount of flasks that I do. So I'm never, ever, ever going into these invasions expecting any sort of, like, reciprocated honor or anything like that. And, moreover, I don't want to. I prefer it this way. I like this. I like the chaotic nature of like somebody just showing up in your world, and you know, you're trying to make progress, and then this dude shows up, and now he's going to try and stop you from making progress, and then a little fight breaks out. There's a little bit of, you know, honor in that. You know, it's just not, we're going to sit here and bow to each other 13 times before we both apply 6 buffs, and then bow one more time after the 6th buff, and then we both drink our flasks to show the other that we're not going to drink our flasks. You know what I mean? Like, we're not doing all that. I don't want to do all that. So, yeah, the idea that invasions are like, they're against your will. You know what I mean? You don't want that to happen. That's the definition of the word invasion. At level 80, that's what happens. There are far less first step gankers just hanging out, which I don't mind those. There are far less Crab Shack duelists just hanging out. And every once in a while, I don't mind one of those. But, you know, I'm not trying to do that for hours on end. The type of stuff that you're seeing here, this is the type of thing that, you know, I want to get into. So I'm using 2 very different builds for this video. One is a pure strength build that leans real heavy on pierce damage. We've got the spear talisman on at all times, and then depending on what my other weapon is, we switch those talismans up. So you saw me doing just absolutely insane damage with the Lucerne. That's because I'm wearing the Roar talisman, and I'm using the War Cry, Ash of War, and that gives me like this insane level of hyper armor on the heavy attacks. When I'm using the Anchor there, I've got the jump attack talisman on, and the Alexander's Jar Shard, and I'm using Raptor of the Mist to do these jump attacks that land with pierce damage. And then on the other side of the video, we're also using my Frenzy Invader. And this build is just pure faith, but it can do a couple of different things. We've got like the Frenzy magic, the incantations, and then we also have like the sacred damage with the Coated Sword, the Cypher Pata, and the Great Sword. What is it called? The one you get in the Consecrated Snowfield from the Misbegotten. The Golden Order Great Sword. I don't proc Madness a lot with my Madness build, but that's okay. I just kind of like casting the spells and being silly with it. And yeah, like I chose these 2 builds because these are the 2 builds that I have that are both right at level 80. I think one's 81 and one's 83. I think one has plus 17 weapons, and I think the other one maybe has plus 15 weapons. I'll show both the builds off at the end. But the reason I wanted to use those 2 builds is I have both of these on the same PlayStation profile, and it just makes it much easier for me to get all of this footage in one spot, as opposed to having to take it from one PlayStation profile, upload it to my thumb drive, and then put it back on another, you know, profile so that I can get it all together before I make a video with it. So I have these 2 level 80s both sitting on the same profile. It just made it easier to get, but it also sort of demonstrates the differences that you can have. Both of these builds are pretty like focused, but they're focused in 2 different directions. This is what I'm talking about. This person wants to like wave at me and everything, and that's cool. I'm not mad at you for like trying to wave at me or whatever, but I'm a crazy person who shoots madness lasers out of their eyes. You know, I'm gonna howl and scream and shoot lasers and just run in and try and kill you. And that's part of the fun for me. That's part of it. You know, hopefully they got that. You know, I'm not against doing gestures and stuff, but like I'll give you a little fist pump at the end or a little bow or something, but you know, not at the beginning. I'm a crazy lunatic running around here like a crazy person. Anyway, the 2 builds. One's like a very magic focused build, and the other with elemental damage, and the other one is just physical damage, just regular heavy infused weapons on one build, and the other build uses sacred damage. And both of them do great at level 80. And that's one of the reasons I like level 80 so much, is because you have to be, you know, a little picky with what you do with your stats, and, you know, you can't have everything. People say that about level 120. They're like, well, you can't have everything at 120, but you can have everything at 200. But I kind of feel like you can have everything at 120. You can make a build that is, you know, capable of switching it up in a hurry at level 120, and like, oh, you know, you want something that's not magic damage on your magic build. Well, you can have that, you know, at level 120. But like at level 80, I'm kind of like limited, especially on that magic build. I don't have access to anything that isn't like sacred damage or fire damage. Like that's it. Like I could use lightning damage, but it would suck. You know, and I kind of like that. I like that I've made like a character as opposed to, you know, I've made a build. And level 80 lets me make a character and be kind of goofy with it. You can still do it at 120 or 140 or 150 or 200. You can do it wherever you want. It's just the quality of your invasions after 80, in my opinion, kind of, you need to be a little bit more mean at after 80, because your opponents, regardless of, you know, what they're doing, your opponents can be pretty mean. This is some. I used to get asked a lot, like, what would be the most annoying gank to fight? If I was streaming and I was streaming Bloodborne invasions, people would ask, like, what's the most annoying gank that you could fight in Bloodborne? Or what's the most annoying gank that you could fight in Dark Souls 3? Somebody the other day asked me, like, what the most annoying gank in Elden Ring would be, and it doesn't matter at all. There's like this professional ganker who hangs out in Nokron or Noxtella, one or the other, and it's him and his buddy, and they both run these like super meta builds or whatever, and they are no more or less dangerous than you know, 2 guys with Moonveil, or 3 guys and one of them has dragon breath. You know, like, there's no wrong answer if you gank. You can play with whatever you want to, and as long as you can't hit each other, and you can't, and as long as all 3 of you are trying to attack, you are probably just as dangerous as anything else. Like, there's no skill necessary, there's no builds necessary. You can just do whatever you want. My point being that co-opers don't have to try to be mean. They just are mean by virtue of the fact that they can't hit each other and they can all swing at you at the same time. And so, like, once you hit level 120, where they have fully upgraded their weapons, it gets real mean. But at level 80, you still have to contend with, like, the over-leveled phantoms, especially the phantoms that rely on status effects. They're going to be absolutely brutal at level 80. But that just, you know, just comes with the territory. Just got to deal with it. But I love level 80, and that's why. And these are the builds that I used. This one is +6, which is +15, if I'm not mistaken, right? I'm squinting real hard, because I don't know that that's right. I'm pretty sure that's 15, and I think this build has +17. People ask me, like, what's a good upgrade, and I say anywhere from at level 80, what's a good upgrade for your weapon? And some people say 15, some people say 18, some people say 17. You know, both of them work fine, as I think I just illustrated, as long as my math isn't off. But yeah, that's the video. Level 80. It's a great place to invade. Check it out. Bunch of fun invasions. Hope you enjoyed them. And for anyone who's wondering how Street Fighter is going, it's going well. I played through World Tour mode, which is where you make your own character, and it's just a single player mode. And I thought I would just play around with it and get Ryu's white gi, and like that would be it. but it was so much fun, I actually played through the whole thing. I really enjoyed it. It was way more fun than it had any right to be. I've been doing a lot of fight clubs with people that hang out in my stream, or I'll go to somebody else's stream that has a custom room, and I'll go in and I'll play with them. But I've been doing some ranked matches, just a little bit. This footage that you're seeing here is from about a week ago. It's June 11th when I'm recording this, by the way. And this is the fight that ranked me up to silver. And at this point, I wasn't playing with any drive cancels. As you can see, I'm not using drive cancels or anything like that at all. Just pure Street Fighter fundamentals with understanding like how the drive impact mechanic works was all it took to get me to silver. The past few days I've been practicing like some more complicated combos as well as drive cancels and stuff like that. But yeah, like just understanding Street Fighter got me to silver. And that's the fight that did it. Anyway, yeah, Street Fighter. Still having a blast. I'm actually getting ready to play Street Fighter right now after I have dinner and I finish this video, which is now done. Thanks for watching it. I'll see you next time. Until then, later y'all.